night, rolling on and rocking on to topic number 10 of the night, our final topic of the night, and that's the great topic of Ohio FU. And I thought this was a funny topic name. You could put a couple of names in there, but I kept just going back to Ohio FU because that's what happened in the end with the Ohio State player quitting mid-game, during the game, walking off the field, and then going into the clubhouse and tweeting Ohio State FU. And he used the full term.
Yes. I think everybody at home knows what you're talking about. Yeah, Kevon Pope, senior linebacker for this Ohio State team, 4-year player. I don't believe he's gotten a lot of minutes for this team over the last 4 seasons. It's Ohio State. You have NFL players on that roster. And I guess what happened during the game is that Pope, was supposed to be called in for the next defensive series. Ohio State was up big on Akron because Akron should not be playing Ohio State. I don't get it. But it's an in-state team that they schedule early in the season. So they're spanking Akron late in the first half, I believe, is when it happened, because then he got escorted out even before halftime. And Pope was supposed to go in. They whistled for Pope to go in. And then one of the coaches says, oh, wait a minute, you got to come back out. We're using a different defensive group or something to that effect. I don't know if it was anything he did or if they were just using different personnel. But he said, screw everybody else. I don't want to be here. He started flipping out on Ryan Day, flipping out on the coaching staff, and all hell broke loose with him. And I think he just lost it. We do have to remember that some of these guys are 22 years old. He's a senior, but he's 22. He's still young. And he really acted immaturely on the sideline. I mean, you're a player. There's times when you're just not going to be put in the game. And you're clearly not going to be necessarily an NFL player. I mean, if he hasn't played at this point with Ohio State, he's probably not playing in the NFL. You never know. But, this is just not the way to handle this. And one of the reasons why it's good, I think, for some of these athletes to go to college is for these types of situations where they do realize finally that they're not the best on the field and they have to work to get on the field to begin with. And I think he's one of those guys who, he hasn't gotten his way this entire time in Ohio State, and he finally flipped out. He thought he would play in a game that turned out to be a blowout against an inferior team, and he got pulled out again, and I think he just lost it. I think it was the last straw for him.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it was one of those things where we've got a player that is using up his 4 years of eligibility and not seeing the field much, and then, obviously expecting to go in the game there when it's a blowout, and then gets called off the field, whether it was a personnel decision or a package decision. And then he just lost it. He just completely lost it, lost his cool, and said, you know what, I'm out of here, man. And Ohio State FU, he threw his gloves into the stands. And then that's when they really were like, all right, we've got to escort you out of here. And for most of you guys that don't understand these Division I programs, those gloves aren't theirs. They're the programs. They're given to them every game. And then the player is expected to turn the gloves in along with his uniform back into the team equipment manager so the equipment manager can get him ready for the next game. So him just throwing those gloves into the stands, it's not like he threw his own personal gloves out there. He threw Ohio State's property out there and cost his team even some, pair of gloves, which obviously that's not a big deal in Division I program. But I'm just giving you the insights because a lot of people are like, oh, that's not a big deal with us throwing his gloves into the stands. Like it kind of is, especially the Division I programs that are paying all this money year after year. And so it was a big deal. And I think this is one of those things where the writing was on the wall for him early, and he kind of made the poor decision. If I was this guy, by the time I was a sophomore and I was realizing I wasn't getting on the field much, that's the time to enter the transfer portal, buddy, because you're running out of years of eligibility. Instead, he decided to stay at Ohio State. He's used up his 4 years of eligibility now. And then now he runs into this thing that it happens and he loses his mind. His career is pretty much done because he has minimal, a half a season of eligibility left. If I'm any Division I coach, I don't want to bring that on, to be honest, and especially with the headache and having to answer the questions of bringing it on after he just did this. So I've got to say his NFL career is out of the window. Obviously, it was before that because he wasn't seeing the field. But his playing days of football are pretty much done at this point, unless he wants to go play rec football or in the minor leagues per se, or arena league or something like that. But it's just like his days of Ohio State and Division I football are definitely done. But I will got to say, it's one of those things where people were comparing it to some movies where when you're like quitting your job and you want to go out big and go out in style, I guess that's the way you do it. And he kind of did that with his big Ohio FU, as we're calling it.
Yeah, the other thing too is, and I know he gave everybody the bird when he was leaving, and he had to be escorted out. But then he goes on Twitter and tells Ohio State to FU. And if these guys, this is where it's great that people are on Twitter. Being on social media for some of these college athletes now is getting them paid, which is great. It's one of the reasons where if I was a younger, college or professional athlete, I'd lay off of Twitter, because then he goes on and says, Ohio State FU. If he didn't do that, but just stormed out and then came back, didn't say a word to anybody, and then came back the next day and said to Coach Day, to the team, I screwed up. It was the heat of the moment. I'm on the sidelines. I thought I was so excited to get in. I completely messed up. You guys want to punish me? If you want me to sit out the next game, I'll do that. He could have kind of, made penance with the team, and maybe would have gotten a shot the rest of the year. Now, because he goes on Twitter and does that, I believe they kicked him off the program. I don't know if I'm 100% sure on that, but I think he's now completely out of the Ohio State program. I mean, now, once you go on Twitter and do that, you're done. So, that's kind of an instance where social media really hurts a college athlete, because sometimes when you're that emotional about something, you just can't help yourself. So I hope the guy, is okay from here on out. I hope he does get another chance somewhere with the minimal amount of eligibility that he has left, but it doesn't look promising for that young man. So not a great